This is WWRD. What would the regulator do? And the question for this episode is, does the regulator mind if regulated firms submit their own applications for new fund approvals, or must they be done through an advisory firm like a law firm? My name is Danny Lawlor from Aquest. I'm joined by my regular co-host Silent Bob. And if you're new to the Aquest YouTube channel, do hit the subscribe button. If you like the video, don't be shy about hitting the like button as well. So the question for this video is, does the regulator mind if firms submit their own applications, or must they come through an advisory firm? And I guess in a nutshell, the answer is the regulator doesn't really mind who submits the application for approval for a new fund. What the regulator is concerned about is that the application is of good quality, so everything is filled in properly, and that whoever is managing the process from the firm's perspective responds in a timely fashion and gives good quality comprehensive responses to any comments raised by the central bank. It is a timely question because it is something that I'm seeing interest in more and more from regulated firms. They're interested in at least talking about the possibility of them managing their own applications for authorization. And I guess there's a couple of reasons why that's possible. Firstly, the approval process, the authorization process, is all really very transparent. The regulator is very clear about what its requirements are. It publishes all of the application forms on its website. And so it is possible for somebody to pick it up, read through it, and understand what's required of an authorization application. In addition, of course, as Ireland becomes more established as a fund's jurisdiction and there's more expertise, that expertise isn't just in places like law firms. Those lawyers are out and they're also working in-house in regulated firms. So there is quite a lot of expertise in-house available to do and run a project like a new fund approval. Now, if you're weighing up whether or not to take on this process yourself, it is worth bearing in mind the advantages of using a law firm, say, to manage and run your new fund approval process. And off the top of my head, I guess the three big advantages I see are, firstly, resources. They have the people there to actually go through and manage the process and to address the queries and get your new fund over the line. And that's important because it is quite an involved process. It does take quite a lot of effort. Also then, of course, they have the experience of having done this before. They will have done this many, many times before, so they'll know what's involved and they'll be able to guide a regulated firm through an approval process quite straightforward, quite easily. And then finally, they do have the experience and the expertise. So that means that if, for example, you get questions from the central bank, they'll be able to guide the client on whether they should push back, whether they should engage and try and change the regulator's mind, or whether they should accept the comment. All of that kind of expertise is very useful then in getting through an approval process. Having said that, there are advantages to managing a new fund approval process in-house. And I guess the first of those is going to be cost. You don't incur the costs associated with hiring an external advisor to do the application for you. The other is control. So you will have full control over the approval process. You'll know when the comments come in. You'll manage creating the responses to those comments. And so it does give you that bit of control around getting the fund approved on time. And then finally, we're increasingly seeing the regulator ask quite technical questions from a portfolio management and a risk management perspective. For example, around things like liquidity risk management, liquidity of the instruments that the fund is going to invest in, looking for sample of the portfolio that the fund might hold. And those questions are usually best answered by the professionals who are operating in the portfolio management team or the fund risk management team. So often where you do engage an advisory firm, when those type of questions arise, you are looking to your portfolio and risk management experts, and then they kind of engage with the lawyers who have to distill what they're being told and pass on the information. And sometimes it's a bit cumbersome managing that middleman process. So where a firm runs the application themselves, you kind of cut that out. So there can be an advantage to it that way. Where I have seen firms take on the new fund approval process in-house and where they've done a good job of it, I think there's four kind of good practices that I have seen. So the first, I'd say, is start small. Don't be too ambitious with your first couple of applications that you put through with the regulator that you manage yourself. So don't take on something big like a redomiciliation or a change of service provider or a new umbrella application. There's quite a lot involved in that. Start with something a bit easier. maybe a new fund approval, a new sub-fund approval where it's a clone or something very similar to something that's gone before it quite recently. So you have good base documents to work from and build up your knowledge and take it from there. The second thing I'd say is don't be afraid to ask for help. So there is tons of expertise in your external legal advisors, probably in your in-house counsel team, and probably around the firm generally, the regulated firm itself. So there is plenty of expertise to guide you and help you through the process. Don't kind of plow along and try and figure it all out for yourself. Thirdly, I'd say is do it well. So I mentioned at the outset, the regulator doesn't really mind if the application is submitted by the regulated firm or by an advisory firm. What they care about is that the quality is good so that they're not wasting time trying to correct errors that should have been picked up when the application was being put together. So do a good job. Do it very well. Spend the time and give it the time that it deserves when you're putting the application together. Create a good impression with the regulator. Let the regulator know that you know what you're doing and really manage the process quite well and devote the time to it that it deserves. I said, create that good first impression. And then lastly, and particularly from the regulated firm's perspective, document quite carefully and closely the process that you've gone through to get from creating your application through to the new fund approval, so that you will be able to share that knowledge with your colleagues. You'll be able to have other people in the organization run new fund approval processes, so that if you're on leave or you're otherwise busy with other tasks, that the process can be gone through by the organization without too much disruption. It really embeds the knowledge and learning in the firm, and that's good all round. So there you have it. Some thoughts on the pros and cons of taking on the fund approval process in-house, which is doable with the right supports, albeit there are advantages, of course, to using your external legal advisors. So it'll vary from firm to firm as to which approach they prefer to take. That's all from me. Silent Bob, you're good too, yes? That's great. We'll catch you next time on WWRD. I said if you are new to the YouTube channel, hit subscribe. You'll be kept up to date with all of our latest content. If you like the video, don't be too shy about hitting like. Thanks again. We'll catch you next time on WWRD.